the global debt is increasing and the economy is not picking up, which is not really a healthy situation.
Jean-Pierre, can we start off by talking about the evolution of assets following alongside the central bank movement since 2008?
Yes, I think that's an interesting question because since 2008, which is, I remember, the last, what we call financial crisis, the question is to know, has that crisis ever ended or are we still in the midst of it? But, you know, since 2008, what the central banks have really tried is to restart the economy. And how did they do it? Now, one thing I like to point out is that the debt to GDP in 2008, globally, worldwide, was 1 to 1. That our governments have been so wisely managing the situation, that the central banks have been so greatly throwing liquidities into the market, and that the debt market has evolved to be nowadays at 3 to 1. Now, the question is, how far is it going to go? Because what is sustainable? On the United Nations side, we talk about sustainable development goals. That is a big issue nowadays. Now, is a debt to GDP ratio of 3 to 1 sustainable so that we can go ahead and have this economy start and prosper again, which it hasn't done over the last 8 years?
Absolutely. So you've talked about if it's sustainable, but do you think central banks are actually in control of their policies at the moment?
Well, you know, I feel like I'm in the Disney movie, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. We have learned things, you know, basically when you're a child, you learn that you cannot spend more than what you have in your pocket. And if you try as a kid to spend more money than what you have in your pocket, you will realize it doesn't work. Yes, except for central bankers and for governments, of course. Now, the question is the policy that has been now implemented, which is really the way the world is being run. It's not anymore the governments that run the world, it's the central bankers. And you see how everybody is nervous. The financial institutions are nervous before Mr. Draghi speaks. And now this week, Ms. Yellen will speaking, and everybody is nervous. Is she going to increase the interest rates? Is he going to decrease the interest rates? Globally, if we observe what has happened over the last 8 years, has that ever had a significant effect? Not really. We're still where we are, except it's a debt-driven economy, and the global debt is increasing, and the economy is not picking up, which is not really a healthy situation.
Absolutely, and I definitely agree with you there on how uncertain markets are before there is a speaker. So do politicians understand and agree with the central bankers' movements at the moment?
I think the politicians and the governments have lost the control of any reasonable management of their domestic affairs as far as what finance are concerned. And that's why they handed over this business to the central bankers by telling them, you do whatever you have to do, but we will not reduce our spendings. And right now we are in the situation where no government has reduced its spending. Government debt is going up. Worldwide debt is going up. And the economy that is supposed to sustain this debt-driven economy, which should go up too, so that, you know, capital can be remunerated. No, the economy doesn't start up. So we're in the magnificent situation of a lose-lose situation.
And now, Jean-Pierre, looking at systematic important financial institutions, or SIFA, how would you say they serve a purpose, and what purpose do they serve?
Well, you know, what I say is this world is basically, let's reduce it to a very simple thing. On one hand, we have wealth producers. On the other hand, we have wealth consumers. Now, in the good old days, the financial institutions were here to make wealth production easier by taking it from those who had excessive wealth production to those who had lesser, who needed the money to expand their business. What has happened over the last 25 years is that the financial institution, more so the systemic institutions, have moved from that situation they had within the wealth producers into the wealth consumer group, the same way that the governments are. And we find ourselves in a situation where the wealth producers are supporting the wealth extractors, which have become the systemic institutions.
Absolutely. Well, Jean-Pierre, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your insights once again.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's all from myself and Jean-Pierre, but for all the latest Dugoscopy updates and exclusive market moves, keep clicking back. Goodbye for now.